Have you ever caught yourself blushing over a man who only exists in ink? Same. And apparently now you can text them back, which is both thrilling and mildly terrifying. Today we're diving into all things book crush confessions, the brain science around fictional love, and the wild, wild world of AI character chatbots. And do feel free to share your first or weirdest book crush in the comments. But let's take it back a little bit. What is the book crush? Personally, I don't think it's an actual physical attraction to fictional characters for obvious reasons. They are characters who only exist on paper, and the ability to genuinely feel attracted to them feels quite odd to me and not what I think a book crush is really about. Nor is it an admiration kind of thing. You don't really admire these book boyfriends, and it's not like you look up to them in any sort of way or want to be the girls. Well, the vast majority of times you don't. I do think, though, it comes down to a lot of the emotional resonance. What I mean by this is there's definitely an emotional connection that you create because you're technically being given a glimpse of a fictional character's life the same way you would be able to talk to a person online without there being an actual physical interaction of that sort. Same way back when you might have a MySpace crush, or nowadays even where you follow people on Instagram, especially influencers which you don't know in person. You still establish an emotional connection with them, and it kind of feels like you're getting a glimpse into their lives with the pictures that they share, the stories they post on Instagram stories. And the same thing happens with books. It gets a lot of people confused who aren't big readers. We're essentially also getting a glimpse into people's lives, except in this case, people are fictional characters. But our brains have a little bit of a hard time distinguishing a fictional character from that sort of influencer relationship that's happening. And I'll dive into a little bit of the psychology and why our brains go feral for fictional characters in a little bit. Though I definitely have to admit that I had my own bookish crushes through the years. I had some wild fictional men who haunted my dreams, but my reputation could not survive me naming names. Let's just say those early 2000s band fanfics went hard. So now that we've collectively outed ourselves, let's talk about why our brains happily hand over our hearts to pixels and paper. It's a lot of parasocial relationships one-on-one. If you're not very familiar with the concept, the fact is our brains process vivid fiction as if it were real experiences. It's a bit like watching a scary movie. Even though you know you're not in the scary movie, you're not inside Paranormal Activity, you still get scared. Your heart is beating out of your chest, you're sweating, you're jumping off the couch with those jump scares. Of course, the horror scenes are not happening to you in real life, but your brain still processes them as if they are. And when you have really good books that manage to fully immerse you in the sphere of it, you also have very vivid and very realistic experiences. So if you've ever found yourself in a book binge completely engrossed in a book and came out of it and felt a bit dizzy and like time had passed but not really, or even had dreams where you were inside of the book, that's not you being weird or strange. It's just the way your brain works. And the same thing obviously gets reflected onto fictional characters and book boyfriends and book crushes. You feel as if you know this person, as if you're establishing a relationship with them. Same way you establish a relationship with influencers, because it's such a vivid experience. Your mirror neurons do not care that this man is not breathing, that he is purely words on paper. All it sees is that your heart rate is increasing and that you feel flustered and that you feel engaged with the process. So it processes it as such. There's a lot of really amazing writers out there who write really grounded characters and with tons of nuance and that really suck you in, which inevitably leads to a sort of a wish fulfillment. Maybe I can put this in another way. Those characters tend to embody the traits that we crave in real life. Like the book boyfriend, he is kind and he has the perfect banter. He brings just enough tension into your life, but you still know there's going to be a happily ever after there. The book boyfriend isn't ever truly mad at you, he will always forgive you, and he will always communicate and get through his issues. So it's very easy for our brains to latch onto this concept, because it's the kind of thing that we wish was in real life. In real life, people are unpredictable. They might not want the same things that you want. They might react in ways that go against your own values. And our brain doesn't like that either. No one likes feeling unsafe and feeling out of control. It's why the fictional fictional world is such an incredible escape. You can dive into a place that is always going to give you that happily ever after, where everything is always going to be okay. And if it's not okay, you can close the book and, come back later when you feel ready for it. And personally, growing up, I was always like a massive reader. Since I could pick up a book, I had one super glued onto my hand. Once I reached my early teens, I started to notice that my expectations didn't match the ones of my peers. Everyone around me was really eager to just have a boyfriend, just have a girlfriend, just have a relationship. And it felt like they were doing it because it was the right thing to do. It never really clicked for me. The relationships I saw from the adult people around me weren't something attainable either. I didn't have a lot of really good examples of what a good relationship should be. So getting into a relationship just for the sake of it, just to say I'm a girlfriend, didn't feel right to me. At the same time, books, whatever genre they were telling me this is what love could be. Love could be extraordinary. My brain genuinely believed that if someone can write love like this, then surely they've experienced it. And I decided that I'd wait for something that felt that real. Surely if a person is writing this incredibly romantic scene where people are standing in the kitchen sipping coffee and making pancakes, and in this own bubble of love, then the author must have experienced that somehow. That's not the kind of thing that your mind can just conjure without any grounds in reality. Or so I believed. So it made a lot of sense that I built that as an expectation. I wanted my relationships to feel that incredible and that amazing, even if I didn't see that reflected in the world around me. Maybe that's why I stayed single for so long, and I genuinely don't regret it. But it never clicked to me until right now, when I'm this much older, that the book boyfriend and the book crush was getting in the way of my relationships in real life. I don't even want to say was getting in the way, but it definitely shaped how I viewed romantic connections and romantic attachments. I wanted the whole shebang. I wanted the drummer, brunette, covered in tattoos guy who treated me like an absolute princess, with a sexy British accent and willing to get me a husky. And for whatever goddamn reason, I don't know if it's manifestation, if it's luck, or if it's fate, but I got it. Hallelujah. And I so wish that if you have a book boyfriend archetype that you wished would become flesh and bone, that it comes true for you, because everyone deserves that. However, as delicious as fictional perfection is, at some point we have to ask, when is it fun fantasy and when does it start messing with real life? Because there is a line between harmless and harmful. On a healthy side, I find book crushes normal escapism. Given all that we know about psychology, it makes sense why we would develop attachments to fictional characters, and I don't see a problem with it. I also think it's really great for creativity and a lot of self-discovery. The truth is, most romance books give you emotional intimacy that you could have with people. And it gives you a bit of a practice run, especially if you're reading books with really healthy attachments and healthy connections being formed. Then hells yeah, what an incredibly good role model that you have access to, particularly if it's not happening for you in real life, if it's not something that you can see around you. That being said, there are a lot of potential pitfalls that we can't ignore. They really build unrealistic expectations. Yeah, I'm really grateful that I have a boyfriend that ticked all the boxes for me, but he's still a human being with his own issues and his own values, and he changes with time the same way I change with time. The same thing can't be said for fictional characters. They are inherently stagnant. It's a book. They don't go anywhere. And they're not going to act the same way a living, breathing human is going to act. Not to mention that if you're using fiction to dodge those messy and imperfect human connections, that's obviously a really horrible thing. Yes, I stayed single until I was 22 because I refused to settle and would rather hold out for the kind of love I read about. And that turned out well for me. But it could have very easily not, if I had used it as an excuse to not give other humans a chance. That's why I have a lot of issues as well with the rise of AI boyfriend chatbots and the ability to chat with fictional characters and establish romantic conversations with them. Like, amazing that we can talk about our fictional boyfriends and make jokes online, but this sort of AI era gets me icky. There's a lot of ethics on fictional feelings that we need to discuss. If you're completely unfamiliar, there's services now that let you chat or even date AI characters that are built from books. Odds are, if you have a favorite book boyfriend you absolutely adored, somebody has created a chatbot that allows you to converse with them and steer the conversations in a specific direction. You can quite literally fall in love with a robot. A robot that can never love you back. And I think that's one of my main concerns, the emotional risk implied here. Generative artificial intelligence can only give you the next predictable best word. It's like counting, you know that 2 comes after 1 and 3 comes after 2, and you just repeat that over and over and over. Except for artificial intelligence, it's in word format. You know that after word X comes the word Y. So no matter how incredible and amazing these characters seem to be, and like, oh my god, you just jumped into a book and can actually speak to the fictional character, that's not true. This is all based on probabilities and statistics. But just as we started the podcast talking about how our brains process vivid scenarios as if they were real, even if they're not, the same thing happens when you're chatting with these bots. It can feel so realistic. It can get you into the loop that it feels like you're speaking to an actual person that gets you and understands you and hears your worries and is always there for you. No human being will always be there for you, and that kind of sucks, and I get it. But relying on a fictional character who can never love you back, they can never hold you, they can never make you pancakes and kiss you on the kitchen counter on a Sunday morning is incredibly sad, and I find it genuinely off-putting rather than intriguing. Like, I get the humor, I get the fun thing of talking to your book boyfriend, but it makes me sad to see someone pouring love into what is essentially code when they deserve a real person who can hug them back. My other worry is also around intellectual property. Yes, I understand we love books and we love the characters, but the reason we love the characters was because there is an author out there, a real living, breathing human who wrote the books you love and who made these incredible characters that sucked you in. And their creations are being used without their consent, and these authors are not getting paid either. You're paying $5 a month to speak to an AI chatbot when the person who's behind isn't getting paid at all. And if everything else isn't an issue, that alone should be enough to get us all to take a breather and respect the author who poured so much into giving us entertainment. And if our hearts can glitch over a character and an algorithm, where exactly is the line? And does it even matter if we know it's fiction? Yes, enjoy the fantasy of it. Please do get sucked into your books. I get it. As an author myself, I love it when people get massively involved with the characters that I write. And as a reader, I love reading a morally gray man that gets my heart pumping loudly and makes me stay up till 3 a.m. But we have to stay aware of the gap between fiction and reality. Critical thinking isn't here to ruin your fun, it keeps it healthy. Be aware of why you're establishing these sort of connections so that you can genuinely enjoy it without putting the real world at risk. Yes, stay dreamy, stay grounded, and maybe text a real human once in a while. Your book boyfriend will forgive you. He's literally incapable of jealousy. Funnily enough, I feel like I could do a whole episode on whether you can cheat on a real partner with a fictional character. So if that's something that you'd enjoy we dive into in the next podcast episode, please let me know in the comments. I'll see you next week.